All right, we are live with Scott and Nate from Play Your Court, two of my buddies, two of the coolest guys with beards on the internet.
Just the
So,
coolest guys with beards.
Yeah.
The guys
Yeah,
without beards, we don't
Yeah.
size up. But
yeah,
thanks for having us, man. We're excited to be here live with you.
Yes, sir.
No, I am excited and grateful that you guys are back for TennisCon 7. As you guys come
Wouldn't
on
miss it.
in, say hello. And if you guys don't know Scott and Nate from Play Your Court, they do a lot of awesome things. But tell us some of the awesome things that you guys do at Play Your Court so that people have not seen you before.
Fire away, buddy.
Ooh, you or me? Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. We sell tennis lessons, which is going to be super pertinent tonight. So we've got a little Uber for tennis lessons thing where we'll send a coach really in any city in the country at this point to your local courts for lessons. We've got a community membership that helps you find practice partners. We sell a lot of video instruction, just like Peter. It's not nearly as good, but we do it.
No, it's not as good. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's really good. It's really good. They do a great job.
And we do some live event stuff. You can catch us on court out in Indian Wells, some stuff of our own. We have partnership with the Bryan brothers, so we do some pretty cool stuff on court with them. Peter, actually, I saw a video of you, I believe, passing a professional tennis player and then chest bumping a Bryan brother, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
I've got to hear. I haven't heard. What is this, Peter? Fill me in here.
I was doing a demo. Gigi told me to hit a lob, and I lobbed, and then it went over. No, wait. So Gigi lobbed over Bob Bryan. Then I lobbed, and then Mike hit an overhead. And then it went to his brother Bob. Bob hit it at his feet. Mike hits a half volley. And I just have this forehand just sitting there. And I know that I either have to hit this winner or be a clown. Like you have to hit the winner.
It's showtime. Yeah.
It's showtime. And I was a nervous wreck because I'm thinking this is definitely going the bottom of the net. It's flying the fence. I close my eyes. I swing. It goes right in the corner, passing shot. And I look back and there's Bob. And he's just like, let's go. Let's do it. and it was awesome. And Bob went up in the air and I chest bumped his pelvis. It was
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
And those guys are so competitive. So Mike was just fuming. Whether a practice point exhibit, whatever it might be, that those guys don't like to lose at anything.
Yeah, well, it couldn't have been better because even Mike goes, "Oh, great shot, Peter," and then everybody clapped, and I haven't even played tennis since then because it's all this downhill after that happened.
Yeah, that's the pinnacle right there.
Absolutely. So we're gonna help people find their perfect coach tonight. Tell us why it's important to find a perfect coach and how hard or easy it is it to find a really good coach out there.
Yeah. So may I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the headline that we want everybody to understand here is you can find a coach that's good, meaning they've got credentials, they know what they're doing, but there's a lot more to it than finding a coach that's good for you, right? So ironically, and we promise we won't turn this into a pitch fest, but this is the literal reason I started Play Your Court all the way back in 2009. Selfishly, I was a tennis coach at the time and I wanted more lessons. But as the business actually grew, I was the first coach on the platform. So as the platform grew into a real business, I realized, man, my 5-year-old son needs a way different coach than an aspiring 17-year-old Division I college athlete, right? So the same good coach isn't necessarily the right fit for both of those students. So really the finding the right person for what you got going on is a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do people find coaches with you guys? What's the process like?
Yeah, so honestly, just head to playyourcourt.com. You're hitting the book tennis lessons or browse tennis lessons button. And we just kind of run you through a series of questions so that we understand exactly what you're looking for. And we've been doing this for way too long, right? This has been around since 2009. So we've got about 2,500 coaches all over the country now that'll travel to your local court. And we've got a proprietary rating system built into our platform. So when somebody takes lessons with one of our coaches, they leave, 1 to 5-star reviews, and we have the data on what the customer is, right? So let's say somebody comes and takes a lesson with Nate and it's their 8-year-old daughter. If they leave a 5-star review, that gives us, a nod on the back end to say, you know what, Nate appears to be good with this age group, this skill level, right? So once we aggregate enough data on all that, then all of a sudden we can get pretty good at recommending the coach that's actually going to be battle tested for exactly what these folks are looking for. So So you'll notice that, as you go through our sort of lessons funnel there, we'll ask you a bunch of questions, and then it spits out sort of the coaches that we know are going to be the best fit based on what you got going on.
To clarify, I'm not for hire on the platform. I get hit up all the time. It's like, hey, I want to take a lesson or whatever. If that was to happen, I would be inundated. I actually have a full-time job at Player Court outside of just teaching tennis with this knucklehead.
Yeah, nobody.
I have a lot of responsibility.
It is funny, Peter, man. Like we're on the internet, and so people think we're just sort of YouTube guys. So like, hey, like how can I come take a private lesson with you? It's like we're kind of a lot going on. So yeah. We made the conscious decision, as did you, to teach millions of people on the internet versus 40 people per week. So,
yeah,
more fun.
So I want to ask you guys, who are some of your favorite coaches growing up as kids? I'm going to put you guys in solo layout, and do you guys have some really great lessons that you've learned from coaches and what you like about what you think are good coaches? What makes a good coach?
Yeah, my favorite coach by far when I was a kid was Nate, because he's really old, and so he was actually.
What he's actually meaning to say is that I'm still coaching him, and every time we're on the court, he's like, "Wait a second." I'm like, "All right, let's work on your crummy backhand volley."
He's not wrong. I'll let you go first. I just saddled them with all my player court spiel.
So, if you're understanding, like, what if I'm understanding correctly, Peter, you're asking what I felt made a good coach?
Yeah, like do you remember? Do you have a favorite coach growing up?
Names.
What?
Yeah, names.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I had two main mentors that coached me all the way up to until college. So I took with this guy, John Atiso.
As did I.
He played Davis Cup for Ghana. He actually came here and taught at a nearby club, and he was like the absolute most. He was the best at getting the most out of you. Very motivational. You're going to hit 500,000 balls. And then I had another coach a little bit later on, Dave Howe, who actually Dave Howe is the founder of UTR. And Dave was just, loved the game, total brain when it came to the game. Just understand the X's and O's of the game, and kind of how I could apply my strengths to kind of hide my weaknesses, and just made me think a whole lot better in the court. So it was a good combination. I had John that was just like, you missed a short ball, we're going to go drill this particular scenario 8,000 times. And I had Dave that would be like, well, this is how we make sure that you're hitting your forehand on this shot instead of your backhand. So it was a good combination.
Yeah. So, Peter, we're both from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is why we're here now. Everybody's like, why do you guys live in Virginia Beach, Virginia? Because it's awesome and we love it here. But so growing up here as well, John Atiso is actually sort of my technique guy growing up as well. Similar feedback. I mean, the guy just understood the game really, really well, and really understood how to make you grind. Like, I was a tough personality as a little kid, and as an adult still probably. But I had a tough time listening, and this guy didn't deal with non-listeners. So this was the coach that my parents brought me to, where this guy was going to get results out of me and make me listen, because he just didn't put up with my crap. So that's important, the discipline side of things. And then I had another coach who's actually still at the club where Nate coached full-time before he came on full-time for Player Court, Andy Hinkle. Also an excellent coach, like one of my best friends now, as you can imagine. But him and I, he brought a lot of the same stuff that John did, but he got down on the human level and like really got to know me as a person. And I think that's a big part of it too. Like, if you don't connect, if you don't connect with your coach and you don't feel like it's fun, what are you doing out there? So he was definitely the person from honestly a really young age that just made the sport addictive and fun for me, and it just stuck, all the way through. So he was a big component. One of the biggest reasons why I stayed in tennis. Junior tennis is rough. Like, you have a lot of ups and downs. A lot of times where I was ready to quit, and Andy was like, why don't we just hit some balls and not worry about it? Like, always got me back on track, kind of remembering why I enjoy the sport. So,
and I would be remiss if I didn't say my folks. I'm on My mom ran a multiple tennis centers in Virginia Beach. Both parents super avid tennis players. You know, it's tough when you're a kid. You don't want to listen to anything from mom and dad, but they were the reason I fell in love with the game. And my dad told me for 20 years to shorten the swing on my forehand, and I was like, that's ridiculous. And then I got into collegiate play, and coach was like, yeah, shorten that swing on your forehand.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh.
And then you probably came home and were like, Dad, you wouldn't believe the great coaching I got.
You want to believe this?
Oh, yeah, that is funny. Yeah, the dads don't know. There's no way the parents could possibly be right when you're a kid.
My parents knew literally nothing about tennis. They just knew that if I got addicted to that, it was better than what else I was probably going to get addicted to if I didn't have something I was focusing my energy on. So I think they were just stoked that I found a passion that was keeping me out of trouble. But yeah.
How about you, Peter? Who was your favorite coach? Put you in the spot.
Oh yeah, I have a couple of coaches. I'll come back and tell everybody my coaching story. So I'm going.
You got to give us split screen again, man. We can't see your.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Delicious.
So my first coach was a guy named Mike Caputo, and he would coach in a warm-up jacket and jeans, and he just had a passion for coaching. First, he thought I sucked. He didn't think I was any good. But then they quickly realized, okay, I might actually be good at this. So he taught me so many hours of tennis lessons. And my parents would say, what do we owe you? And he'd be like, nothing, And then eventually said, well, we have to pay you something. It'd be like, okay, $8, something ridiculous like that. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but I mean, it was crazy the amount of work and passion he put in. So that was great. And I knew that he cared about me a lot, which I think was really important. And he taught me hard work right away. Like he was one of those coaches, with the big shopping carts. And he would say, okay, 3 balls left. And then all of a sudden you're working your way down the shopping cart. You're like, I thought it was 3 balls 60 balls ago.
Yeah.
So he played a lot of mind games with you. And then the other thing is which I think as a kid, I don't know, there's pluses and minuses to it. I've thought about this a lot. I was kind of scared every practice because I did not know what he was going to do. I didn't know if he's going to be in good mood, Mike, if he's going to be in bad mood. He could be okay, and then I'd miss 3 shots in a row. And I remember one time he took this ball and slammed it in the curtain, and the whole place shattered, it was making, and I'm just but when I realized, okay, I'm not afraid to play tournaments because I learned to play through fear. And when you can learn to be afraid and play through the fear, I think that's a very powerful thing. And then my other coach that I remember a lot was Ian Griffiths, who was this Australian guy. He was completely nuts, but he was excellent at teaching technique, really taught me the technique on pretty much every shot, especially volleys. I became a serve and volleyer in my teenage years. So, yeah, I mean, I think what you look for maybe as a junior and as an adult, which I kind of want to pivot to next, is different. What do you think people out there who are looking for their first coach or, trying to get connected with another coach, and they're maybe 3.0 to a high 3.5. Let's start with those 2 levels. What should they be looking for to pick a coach? Somebody who's very technical, somebody who feeds them a lot of balls, talks a lot, talks a little. It's different. What do you think?
Can I lead and then hand over to you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll go back to the fun and just good personality fit. Because we're talking adults now, right? We're talking, 3.0, 3.5. We're talking adult rec players. I mean, most adults have jobs and a lot of stress in their life, and tennis is a hobby. Particularly at the 3.0, 3.5 level, you're not making a lot of money on the pro tour at the 3.0 to 3.5 level. So, I mean, I know it's a cheesy answer, but I always go back to fun, right? If you're going to be out there for 1, 2, 3 hours a week with a hobby that you're paying for, you have to enjoy it, right? So I think the personality fit right there is going to be a pretty big one. And then I think it depends a lot on your goals, right? If you're a 3.0 player that just wants exercise, you need a much different coach than if you're a 3.0 player that aspires to quickly become a 4.5, 5.0, right? So I'll turn it over to you with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the just kind of touching on what Scott was just saying is a coach that kind of understands you, who you are as a person, especially when you're just kind of starting out. Meaning, like, are you type A? Are you passive? Like, what is your personality, and how much that actually translates into tennis? Because it really does. I've had coaches that I've worked with. I've been a director. I've ran an academy. I've been an assistant pro. I've kind of done all of it. I've worked with a lot of different pros, and I think sometimes pros are, they have a way of teaching, and whether you're an alpha or if you're super passive, that coach is teaching everyone the same exact way. What Scott's saying is like the first thing is like, let's make sure they're falling in love with a game, and then you kind of have to figure out like what is their personality, how do you speak to them, do they just absolutely cringe with any kind of criticism, and there's some people, I've worked with people that were like, I don't want the fluff. If it's not good, don't tell me it's good. Like I don't want any of that, and it's like it's kind of figuring out who you're working with so that you can start navigating these lessons and start building a pathway to what could be potentially the next level if they do in fact stay with the game. But at 3.035, I mean, they've already kind of made a commitment. So especially the 3.5 level, I mean, that's the majority of people playing tennis in the country. So, they're looking on how to get to that next level.
I will say, and there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to like this suggestion. So there are two organizations that certify tennis coaches. I get some pretty unique data on how that might not actually matter in terms of whether you stay in the sport of tennis. And to me, that's extremely important as a coach, because if you're not continuing to play, you're not having fun. So I think certifications can help, but they don't override a shitty personality, right? Mm-hmm. So you can be, one of the highest pedigree coaches in the game, but if you're just mean to, your 3.5 student that's overly sensitive, like it's not a good fit, right? So I think there's boxes you want to check. I mean, I think the baseline boxes would be, what you're talking about. Certifications would indicate that you've gone through testing and know more than most. When I look at Nate, one of the biggest reasons we've had so much success in coaching on the internet is very much Nate's pedigree. Like he has a high performance coaching background, so he understands how to dissect pieces better than I ever did, and better than really most coaches I've seen. But again, like, is that necessary for your 4-year-old daughter? Probably not. So again, I think it always comes back to just what are your goals, and then what's the right coach for those goals. Like I have a 5-year-old son right now, and everybody's like, oh man, like are you getting him out there with Nate, like the best technique guy on earth? And I'm like, no, I'm getting him out there with the really bubbly girl at the club that I know is going to make it really fun. And so when he comes home, he loves tennis now. And then when the time comes, we'll introduce, all the technical stuff if he wants to take it that seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to come back here. Exit solo layout. So one thing that I kind of noticed from the online community is it seems that they're very much into learning how to play, quote unquote, the right way. Like they want to have the right strokes. That's why they, I think come to the online world is they want to do things right. They're looking to do things more modern. They want to figure out how do they get topspin on the ball? How do they get spin on their serves? How do they figure out how to do the right grip? And they're kind of obsessed with that. And I think that what gets frustrating to them is they go to their local courts and the people don't really treat them with the respect that they're looking for. That they're like, well, I have a junior development program, and then I just kind of keep my adults, happy and feeding them balls and social. And a lot of these people really want to look for, like, I want to be treated like a junior, you know? So what do you guys think about that? How do you find that if you go to your website? Did you find like coaches that are more technical and work with people? If someone's coming to your site and they're like, I want to be treated like a junior, how would they fill out your form to make that happen?
It comes down to goals. I mean, so as they answer their questions, one of the biggest ones is, what are your goals for this lesson? There's a bunch of different selections there. The biggest one, if your goal is to improve above all else, then we're going to give you the highest performance coach we have available for your skill level. And again, that's different for different ages and different skill levels. A high performance coach for a 16-year-old high school player is not the same thing as a high performance coach for a 5-year-old. But yeah, it all comes down to just goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we filter our coaches by the results you want to see. If you want to, if like, there's going to be a lot of people that are out there, and there's nothing wrong with this. I hear a lot of people, a lot of coaches just say, this isn't what tennis is about. Like, a lot of parents will just come and say, I just want something to get them off their iPad that they enjoy. Like,
Yeah.
that's great. Like, that's fantastic. But a high performance coach is going to get really frustrated really quickly if that's the goal of that lesson. So the two aren't a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
You have anything to say there, Nate? Guys, what do you guys think? What do you look for at a coach? What are some of your pet peeves out there? What kind of drives you crazy when a coach treats you a certain way or says something to you? I want to know your pet peeves. But Nate, what do you think is important if you're out there a 3.0 to 3.5 looking for as far as trying to get a technique going? How would you develop somebody's technique? What do you think the best way to develop someone's technique is?
Well, to go back for just a second, what you were saying is spot on, right? Like our YouTube community, everybody's very analytical, and I think sometimes they're a little guilty of like looking for that special gem that's going to fix all. But I love the energy that our YouTube, viewers have, and when we get that on the court, it's easy to give that energy back because they're so enthusiastic about the game. And it's like being a teacher. I come from a line of teachers: my dad, my twin brother, my wife. And it's like, when you don't have a kid ever asking any questions in class, you're like, okay, let's put on a movie, right? So it's like when you have that energy on a tennis court, it's easier to be a good coach. You get excited about it. But for me with technique, I think one is really understanding somebody that's got an eye for it, right? Somebody that, I say this all the time, that is perhaps using video analysis, right? Using a camera is huge. It's like the biggest tool we have with technology right now as a coach. And to me, it's like the quintessential way to learn technique. It's so hard sometimes to vocalize. Like most of us are visual learners, and and you show them and everything. But when you can actually get an iPad and be like, hey, check this out. This is what you're doing. And
for the coach too. I mean, seeing it in slow motion obviously uncovers things we don't see at full speed, particularly from across the court, right? Like a lot of the ways we do workshops, Peter, like having both of us there is important because you've got two sets of eyes, but it's also important because you've got two sets of hands, one to feed and one to actually capture, strokes up close and in motion under slow motion video analysis. So
yeah, absolutely. And on the other end of the spectrum, I think it's also important that I have a little list I'll share with you at one point that I have my top 6 for what makes a good coach. But part of this on this that I was kind of putting thought into, you can't be too technical either. Like there are coaches I think that are guilty that like kind of have a biomechanics background, and it's like they start talking in sports science, and it's like people don't necessarily pick up on that. I think there's ways to teach technique that can be simplified without getting into the sports science of it, overly sports science of it. And then I think simplifying. I think Scott and I both, and probably yourself, Peter, I think simplifying when you're learning technique is really important. I think for most strokes, we start with the hands. It's like understanding what the hands are doing. I've seen high-level coaches take a 3.5, and the first thing they're doing is out there on the footwork. And it's like, maybe the feet come after the hands. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really kind of figuring out who knows how to teach technique, but most importantly, who knows how to communicate good technique.
Yeah. Lately, I've been thinking about technique a lot. After I've been always huge. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think. Always been very much into the idea of shadow stroking, how powerful that is, and a lot of people do. It's one of the things that's I think shadow stroking and footwork, two of the hardest things to get students to buy into, to actually practice. Maybe they'll agree like it's important, but then you're like, okay, you actually do it. Most of the time you can catch them and they say no. Yeah.
Right.
But
it's supposed to,
but you watch that King Richard movie. Did you guys see that movie?
Awesome movie.
And those young ladies never played tennis before. And they look better than most of the people who have been playing their entire life. And the coach who worked with them made them do shadow strokes for 2.5 months before they were allowed to hit a ball.
That's awesome.
And I thought, wow. And I thought, for people who really, whether you get your own coach or not, guys, if you really are obsessed with technique, you should get into shadow strokes and take it seriously and video it. So for people who have, like, they're not necessarily concerned about winning right away when they start playing or hitting the ball, but they're like, they want to look good. They see Roger Federer and they're watching Roger Federer videos and they're watching Novak Djokovic videos and Serena videos and all that. Like, I want to look like that. I think you got to put away the balls for a while and get the moves down.
100%.
Because
you can't do it slow, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing it fast. Like that,
Yeah.
You have to. I'm 100% with you. It's like we have a lot of times through the academy we would have like almost like stations, if you will, right? And it would be like working through swing thoughts and just really getting through what the technique was, and then we would have an assistant coach like doing drop hits, and then it would be like hand-fed drills, getting them to move to the ball, and then it would be like moving on to another court where they're actually sparring. And we'd kind of work the progressions and regressions. And this is more like an intermediate group that was like really still trying to instill fundamentals.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another big thing that Nate's touching in on, is going from if you want to get something, you want to look beautiful on the court, you want to learn something new, the process is to work in a closed environment to an open environment. The ultimate close is shadow strokes. And like Nate's saying, then hand feeds. Then maybe you're rallying in the short court. Maybe it's with a low compression ball. Then you're sparring cross court. Then you're playing points. Then you're playing matches. If you can rinse and repeat that process, then I think you can experience that steady growth. What do you guys think?
I think that's well said and spot on, my man.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mentioned the low compression balls, because I see a lot of coaches miss that step, and that really can be the step that unlocks the fun piece, right? Like, tennis is hard for a lot of people when they get out there, particularly. I'll never forget, I think it was USTA that released the commercial that showed like a kid on like an Olympic-sized soccer field just looking really terrified, and then it showed another kid on like an MLB-sized baseball field just looking around being like, there's no way I can hit a home run on this field. And then it said, like, we don't treat our kids like this in other sports. Why do we do it in tennis?
Oh, was that the Agassi and Steffi?
I
think
can't
at the
remember.
end, they're yeah, I think so.
But like the idea is just, depending on your age, shrink the court, shrink the compression of the ball, slow things down so that you get it. That absolutely applies up at the adult level. Like, I can't tell you how much more fun a lot of my adult students instantly had when we just switched to orange ball. And now we're in a 5-10 ball rally where they were struggling to just get a ball in play. And then now you're getting a rally going. Now you can work on technique. So I think I just wanted to highlight how important the low compression balls can be, particularly for lower level players, to sort of get where they want to go.
For sure. Well,
and I think also players trying to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Players trying to make a change. That ball is now at your waist. It's slower.
Yep.
Because when you go out there and you're trying to do something new and the ball is bouncing way up and you're just trying to figure out the steps, it's just going to keep ingraining those bad habits. I
think that's why we saw so many kids with like Western grips. It's
Yeah.
like they come out and the ball's way above them and they're just trying to figure out how to, swing up to the ball, and their grip ends up so far behind, not because that's the intention. That's where they navigate to try to fend this ball off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people too, you guys out there, you want to really think about what's the most important for you as a player. What do you really, you have to be honest. Like, what do you really want? Do you want, like, one guy, coach, he said, Pete, I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to play beautiful tennis. I'll never forget when he said that, so then it's all right. We got to do a lot of shadow strokes. You got to do a lot of the tedious stuff, and then if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I'd like those strokes, but I'm not really willing to do the shadow strokes. I'm not, and I want to win tomorrow. I don't want to go out there on Sunday and lose. If you are like that, then maybe you don't have to learn all the advanced stuff. Have you guys ever seen MEP play, most exhausting player?
Yeah.
Oh,
on Ian's channel?
Or Central.
Yeah, on Tennis Troll. And I mean, I think that's a great lesson for a lot of people out there to win and to beat a lot of players between 3-0 and a pretty high 4-0. I think the less complicated your strokes are, the less that you look like a pro, and the more you're actually using pushing strokes rather than swinging strokes. Even on your serve, I know that's controversial, but even on your serve, he just kind of just pushes the serve in and gets it in place. Playing people who are winding up, hitting serve, hitting topspin, but that requires a lot of perfect technique, great timing, and a lot of confidence. If any one of those three break down in a match, you're going to lose to somebody who has very simplistic, not very pretty strokes, because all they're having to think of is see ball, tap ball. And you're thinking all these swing thoughts. So if it's just like, hey, I just want to have fun and I want to win, kind of almost look at like how people play pickleball, even though you're making fun of it. If you have pickleball strokes on the tennis court, you'll probably win a ton of matches between 3-0 and 4-0. What do you guys think about this? I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear that.
So I've got an example. I mean, Sonny Dirth from Virginia Beach. I'm sure you were thinking the same thing. So
Dirth Vader.
So there's a guy here in Virginia Beach.
High level 5-0.
And if you watched him play, you'd be like, nah. But like I lost to him. I was 3 in the Mid-Atlantic in 14s. And I got out there, and I guess at the time he would have been probably in his early 50s, I guess. Is that math check out? Maybe late 40s. 40s.
Yeah.
And we're warming up, and I'm just like, this guy's a joke. Like, this is going to be a cakewalk. Dude beats me like 3-3. Just chopped every ball back. Just allowed me to beat myself. So I have real life examples of this here in Virginia Beach, and I mean that guy's gone on to win title after title after title by just letting other people beat themselves.
Well, I think it's a good competitor, but I think that's like, I think it's so most exhausting player, Sonny. These guys know who they are as players, and they play for themselves. As you touched on, Pete, like the enjoyment they get out of the game is competing and winning. I mean, let's face it. Like I've got a buddy, Paul, that plays in Alta with most exhausting player. What is that? MEP?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he's the real deal. He went undefeated at like 4-5 or whatever it may have been. And he doesn't care. Like, I mean, myself personally, I would have a hard time. I'm just not wired that way, since I was little. I've always, I wanted the ceiling to be, but I think kind of hats off to somebody that can be like, I just enjoy competing.
I mean, in response to Limper here that says, doesn't this lower your ceiling though? It does, but it also raises your floor, right? So like if your default is just getting the ball back in the court, that's a pretty gosh darn good floor, right? Yeah. If the ball always comes back, like you're a hard player to beat. Yeah, of course, if you're not taking real cuts at the ball and your strokes aren't, progressing, there's only a certain level you can take that, but we've seen it taken to the 5-0 level before.
That's right.
So the ceiling, while it's limited, you can get pretty far that way. I'm not suggesting it.
That's DeVore, too, from Tennis House. Big fan of yours, buddy.
Yeah,
he's one of the best out there.
Yeah, guys, keep commenting as you're watching this. Yeah, I mean, here's my thought on it, because it says, doesn't this lower the ceiling, though? And I want everybody to understand, I love teaching technique. I love the art of tennis. It's why I love to teach technique, and why I loved technique growing up is I just thought it was a very artistic game. So I enjoyed learning the moves. So, I mean, if that's part of what you want, and you get that, and you keep working the progressions like we're talking about in a closed and open environment, you can get to a pretty high level. The example of somebody winning with not good strokes at 5-0, I mean, I think that becomes the exception to the rule. You get to 5-0, most people are going to have pretty beautiful strokes. But this is where you want to be honest. What I'm just trying to tell you guys is be honest with yourself. How hard are you willing to work for what you want? And what do you think the ceiling can be? Like, what do you think the ceiling should be for you? Is the ceiling 4-0? Is the ceiling 5-0, 6-0? If you're looking at it going, well, no matter what I do, I probably, even if I got a lot better, I don't think I'd get much better than 4-0. And I want to win a lot of matches. If you're like killing yourself trying to learn the continental grip and, get rid of the frying pan waiter tray position, and it's driving you crazy and you're losing matches and you're starting not to have fun, just because there's a lot of coaches out there going to tell you that's the wrong grip, that's not real tennis. 80% of people playing tennis are between 3-0 and 4-0. And there are countless, thousands upon thousands of people over the years who have won national titles with a frying pan grip and a waiter tray. So I just think it's one of the things that we kind of don't do well is we make people feel like they're not playing real tennis unless they look like a real tennis player.
Yeah.
But most real tennis players, you guys are the real tennis players. You guys are the one who are playing the sport the longest out of anybody. You're playing the sport longer than juniors. The hotshot juniors are quitting at 22, 23. So you're playing the sport. You're supporting the sport by going to tournaments and buying online courses. I mean, you guys are tennis. You guys are real tennis. And so if you do have a frying pan grip and some coach makes you feel guilty about it and you're not willing to go through the work of changing the grip, I want to let you know it's okay. You can probably win a ton of matches without beautiful technique. So that's my only thing. Don't get obsessed with beautiful technique if winning's so important to you and you can only get up to a 4-0 anyway. I don't know if people want to hear it. If you don't want to hear it, let me know what you guys think about this. What do you guys think about
Pete,
this?
I'll add on to that. I honestly think one of those people, almost players that just enjoy competing, they've kind of gotten their game to where, where it's going to be, and they're learning the X's and O's maybe more so, and maybe making small nuance changes, but not big overhauls of technique. They're kind of blessed because in a sense, I can't tell you how many players I work with that are so obsessed with technique, they forget that there's a sending receiving game going on. And it's like, hey, where's my elbow? Am I keeping the racket on the right side of the body? And I'm like, buddy, the ball is on you before you've even taken the racket back. Like you're not playing the game. Like there's still a game going on within the beauty of what the technique is. And really when we enjoy the game the most is when we can finally stop thinking so much about technique. Now, I mean, even for myself, like, do we ever stop growing? No. I mean, we're always kind of tinkering and thinking about things, and that's maybe the joy of tennis as well. But at some point, you can overdo it. You can overthink technique to where the game is just a nightmare. You're thinking about where your racket is, and you haven't thought once about where the ball is or your opponent.
Yeah. Bhaskar here. Now you guys are waking up. Keep waking up. We like it. Bhaskar said, "Hey, Pete, Nate, Scott, love you guys." He played your bracket challenge and he won.
Nice.
So no wonder he loves the bracket challenge. That's a winner right there.
Where are you from, Bhaskar? Throw that in the comment section. I'm always curious to hear where
Bhaskar's from Jersey. He's been to my masterclass clinic 3 times now. He's been to Atlanta a couple times, and he's got a great blend because he's obsessed with technique. He's willing to work a lot of his technique. And he's also getting very good at implementing, so I mean, the jump from year to year has been amazing. So he's doing a lot of the right steps. That's what it really takes. Okay, so we have, I love technique. I'm a 3-0 women's player. Started learning tennis from scratch years ago. Not winning a lot of matches, but it's coming together. Yeah, and so that's what I think you want to think about, MJ, is like, okay, how much do you want to learn beautiful technique? And if you want to learn beautiful technique, you have to do a lot of the shadow strokes, a lot of the progression learning. It's like if you want to perform with what you're trying to get with technique, it's like you're going to go buy a Ferrari. You got to really keep it well maintained. And I also want you to understand, if you want the great technique, and usually when we think about great technique, we're thinking about swinging serves, swinging forehands, swinging backhands. You're basically out on the tennis court playing with a driver, like a golf driver. And so if that's a little off, the ball can go way off. And a lot of your opponents are playing with putters, so there's not as much that can go wrong. Yeah. And so if you want to play with a driver, you've got to really work at it. And then once you get it, though, then you can just destroy people. We got Mars from Harper's Point. Best club ever.
Hey,
love the condo. Tennis House says there might be a lot of players, you're right, that don't play with the right technique and they win. And as long as they're winning, it's fine. Sure. Flaws and all. Yeah.
Well, on that point, Yeah, exactly. So what DeVore, I had a guy that came to me that just had hip replacement, and he's always been a really good counterpuncher, plays at like a high 4.0, low 4.5 level, and we started talking about like actually changing technique to some degree because he had to become more aggressive. Like when you don't have the wheels to suddenly play, in the identity that you're used to. At some point, if you want to still be relative at the level and you lose the wheels, we do have to start implementing technique where you're being more aggressive.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the second you get slower, the second you're going to have to depend on some technical stability a bit more, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so refreshing to hear. It's nice to hear you three talk about such methodical and intelligent way. Thank God we're talking about tennis, because anything else, I wouldn't say very
It would have been a disaster.
Yeah, I
All right.
will say it probably is relieving for a lot of players to just hear, like, you know what? Like, it's okay if you don't aspire to have perfect technique. Like, not everybody has to have the goal of playing tennis on tour, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to just settle in and have fun as a 3-5 player. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite students have that same goal. It's like, I'm 50 years old. I can't run that well. I've been playing tennis for 25 years. I don't want to overhaul this. I just love the sport and I enjoy playing it and I want to compete. Can you give me some tweaks with what I've got going on? I don't want to overhaul my entire game. Like, I respect that. You got to know what you want.
Yeah.
I will add on that, though. I think there are players, and I agree totally. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't believe in themselves that they could achieve a technical change. You know what I mean? We work with a lot of people with the serves that I'll never be able to do that. And it's like, well, you can.
Not with an attitude like that. You can.
Yeah, but there's a process to it, and I think this all goes back to the first day you meet your coach. You should know who you are and what you want out of tennis. And if you're working with a good coach, they should ask you. They should say, "What are your goals? What do you want out of this relationship in tennis? Like, what is it?" And if you're not being asked that, then you're probably going to get some cookie cutter lessons that's not really about getting you to those goals.
And honestly, ideally, if you were to call a club and say, I'm looking for tennis lessons, ideally, that would be the first question they asked you is, what are you trying to achieve? Okay, let us pair you with the right coach. Most clubs, not so much. There are clubs that are at this level. But this is one of the problems I feel like we set out to fix.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
Christopher, what's the why?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's well said.
Christopher, we see a lot of you all over the internet, man. I appreciate the loyalty.
This guy is a great player too. He sent some videos. He's really, really good.
Nice. I love hearing that.
Yeah. I have a match at Harper's.
Christopher, you're cheating on us with Peter. I see what's going on.
You said he's all over the internet.
I'm watching us, Peter. I didn't realize he was cheating on us directly with you, man.
In front of our face.
Yeah, right in front of our face and everything. Yeah.
That,
Christopher, we love you, brother.
That is hysterical. DeVore Scott, what do you think about players when they come to the first coach? They teach them an immediate two-hand. I feel that the one-hand coming. What do you think about that? Just going straight, defaulting to the two-hander? That's a good question. Especially DeVore's got a beautiful one-hander. Amazing.
I'm about to say a nice thing about you on the internet live. All right, you're a way better technique coach than I am. I'm comfortable saying that. For me, I just feed and see what they gravitate towards. So like if they show up with a one-hander or with a two-hander, I might just let them try both and just sort of see what they feel like comes more naturally, particularly if they're earlier on. You're going to hear like a constant theme for me. I'm all about like retention in the sport of tennis and fun and making sure your first experience makes you want to have a second experience, because tennis is hard and a lot of people don't have that path. They have their first lesson. They're like, nope, this is impossible. I'm out of here. So for me, it's all about like quick success, getting enough wins where they're having fun, and then they're committed. Then we can start to tweak and dial in. But yeah, DeVore, I'm kind of with you there. Like you don't just default to a two-hander.
Yeah. No, it's I think we see it a lot now because somebody won, I think it was Balotelli, was like, well, Federer had a two-hander. He would have won 3,000 Grand Slams, and it's like two-handers the default. I think you learn a lot from the one-hander. I think you learn racket head speed naturally through a one-hander. Swinging low to high is very natural in a one-hander, but I also think it's easier to start moving towards like kind of the utility knife stuff of the slice and the volleys. So I think, I mean, there's some people that out of the gates, I'm like, we're going to work on a one-hander. Beginners, big dudes, big shoulders. It's like, yeah, man, you're not swinging with two hands.
Mhm.
You know, but I do think it's underutilized. You both will maybe excited to know that after 30, heck, 40 plus years of tennis, I switched to a one-hander about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Played
Yeah.
with a two-hander my whole life. Had a TFCC ECU tear in the left hand, and that was it. It was like either figure it out or don't. But I think
that it was the best thing that ever happened to him. His
Yeah.
one-hander is way better than his two-hander.
well, all of us as coaches, like we have some kind of one-hander, right? Because like you're feeding, and you've got to have the ability to hit a one-hander if you're holding several tennis balls.
Yeah. Guys, keep the questions coming. They're great. Like, let us know what you're working on. What's your biggest frustration in your game right now? Speaking of technique, what are your thoughts on using wrist to get more? This is very interesting, right? Because, yeah, Patrick Mortago is always talking about the wrist, whoosh, the wrist, and what do you guys think about that? The wrist and how active is the wrist? What do you guys think about? Have you seen him talk about the wrist and
serve or forehand or
everything? He's like is always talking about the wrist,
Yeah.
especially on forehand especially.
I'll let you handle forehand. I mean, we just covered
My
exactly
thoughts.
how to think about this on the serve.
My thoughts. I'm going to call him Patrick, not because I know him, but his last name's hard to pronounce, and Patrick's easier.
Nate and Patrick go way back.
Way back. But no, I've seen it. People have sent it to me and asked. Like, I like his stuff about sending the hand. I think, you know, that's great. Like, but when he starts getting into the wrist, I don't know if it's like lost in translation or what. I can't fathom that he's actually telling people to break the wrist or you know, trying to slap with the wrist. But if he is, that's bad instruction. That's
His
bad
instruction
technical.
Also is like very, very, very high level typically, right? Like that's not for your rec player. You're not watching Patrick for like a 3-0 forehand lesson.
He's putting it out there working with players that are, I mean, some people are at the 3-5 level though, and he's giving them tips. So I think, you know, why wouldn't they be advised? I don't know. I'm hoping it's being miscommunicated, or maybe there's something that's being missed. And, you know, he's publishing a lot of shorts or whatever. But I mean, even on the serve, I don't know about you, Peter. I don't teach to snap the wrist. I think that's a byproduct of proper contact and pronation. I think the wrist is this superhuman anatomy that we're blessed with. I think everything that happens that's good in tennis is because of the wrist. But I would never teach someone to actively try to, like, you know, snap at it or something like that.
Yeah. I think, you know, of course he's not here to defend himself. Patrick, you're welcome on our channel anytime.
You don't have his cell phone. You don't have his cell phone, Pete? Come on.
No, you know, but well, I did actually see him. I saw Patrick. First of all, I'm going to go to your academy next year. We're bringing a group out there, but I did see him at Harper's Point. And I brought him out his basket and his water, and I told him about TennisCon. I said, "You don't even have to make a new video, Patrick. You can, you know, just send in one of your other videos. Maybe just do like a 10-second intro. You know, what do you think?" And I say, "We usually get like 8,000 people to sign up, and blah blah blah. And will you be part of it?" He goes, "Of course." And the way he said, "Of course," because he wanted to film, he was filming out there. The way he said, "Of course," I knew it was. I translated that French accent to "no chance." Bye-bye. So, but I think sometimes too, when you're working with higher level players, you can say things that are maybe not scientifically, you know, but it's more of like the feeling, you know, like even though your wrist isn't snapping and things like that, you know, I mean, when you get to a certain level, you feel a lot of times that you're using your wrist to make a shot where maybe somebody could break down the video and say, "You see, you're not actually using the wrist, you're using your older DVD." You know, like, so I think a lot of times he's talking in feelings rather than science. And I think that that's good in a lot of ways, especially when you're working with a high level player. You can kind of just like make little motions with your hand or say something. And a higher level player just kind of, it's like you kind of have this code that you understand right away, where when you're playing with a 3-5, 4-0, you got to be more literal about what you're teaching.
Yeah, I think it's just lost in translation. I think he puts out shorts, and then some players interpret it a different way. But I mean, look at the guy's resume. He obviously knows what he's doing. So,
yeah.
He's above average performance as a tennis coach.
Craig says, my biggest frustration is fitness, court coverage, shot selection. I think they're all related. Do you
They
think those
are.
are all
Me
related?
too, Craig. Yeah, I mean, for sure. If you're feeling like you're out of breath and not wanting to run down the ball, you're not getting your feet set and ripping. Your shot selection's limited, right? If you're getting to the ball slower because of lack of fitness, that's always going to sting, right?
Mm-hmm. Here's another. My coach is really good at helping me make adjustments in my strokes. However, I feel like every lesson is a one-off and there is no continuity. I have taken 4 lessons so far. So, yeah, how important is it when you're working with a student to have like a systemized kind of like progression you take them through 6 weeks or whatever, or versus like you come in and you kind of feel like what they need that day, which I guess could kind of end up being all over the place. What do you guys think?
That was 4 on my list, Pete.
Of what makes a good coach, top 6.
Yeah, what makes a good coach? Fourth, that was like keeps track of your lessons, your progression, like what you're doing, and the reason. And to be fair, I was a soldier on the ground where I was like, as a coach, most of the time you're getting paid for the amount of hours you're putting in, right? And that creates a ceiling, and it's tough. But by with that incentive, you can be teaching 50, 60 hours a week. Most teaching pros are at least 35 or 40. And to no fault of their own, let me be very clear on this, to no fault of their own, it becomes very difficult to keep track of what everybody's doing. But even a quick note, for me, I had my cell phone on me. So I get done with the lesson, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, so Aiden, these were the important moments today. This is what we want to review. This is what we want to talk about. Because what happens is that I've got, 45 other lessons I'm teaching for the rest of the week. Aiden only does 1 lesson a week with me on Tuesdays. And I've got 6 days before then and how many lessons. I'm not going to recall everything no matter how much I want to. So keeping some kind of track of what players are doing and having, whether you're writing it down, but some mindset of like, how am I getting this student from stage to stage, progressions, regressions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't we go through your top 6 and then we'll answer some more questions here. You guys keep writing down your questions, what you're working on. We got another good comment on technique and matches. We'll talk about that. But I think we're almost at an hour here. I don't want to keep you guys till 11 o'clock or anything like that. So why don't we go through the top 6 things to look for in a coach?
Yeah. Happy to share. So for me, this is, and I think sometimes is when we're looking for a coach, we don't even know what we're looking for, right? We go off recommendations, but this would be what I would suggest. So number 6, I touched on a little bit, understands who a person is and how that translates as a player. Just to elaborate on that a little bit more, one of the worst mistakes I've ever made as a coach is I took someone that was very risk adverse, didn't like making mistakes. And as she got older, I wanted her to be more aggressive. And it just isn't, it messed her up, set her back for several months. She ended up playing D1 ball. But it was a learning lesson for me. Her personality was never going to let her miss by being more aggressive. And I think that's something that coaches, you want to look for that in coaches, that they are interested in knowing who you are. Number 5, doesn't have one way of teaching, and that's often like themselves. I've worked with multiple coaches that's like, no, you got to do it like me. Right? But we're all different. So it's like they are really good at playing tennis, and they try to translate what kind of they do and what you should do. And I think, honestly, sometimes that's also why really good players, I worked with a guy that was on tour. He wasn't the best coach because he's never not been really good. It's hard for him to communicate the nuances of the game. And no, not like this, like me. It doesn't work.
Yeah, good one. This is a good list.
Thanks, man. Number 4, we just talked about, keeps track of progress from week to week. 3, started with this, uses video analysis. Like they're not always going to be able to do it, but we have access to so many. I mean, on the phone now, tripods or on Amazon. You have access to it.
Always able to. I mean, you can buy a tripod on Amazon.com for $15 and snap your iPhone into it, and at the very least, just turn the video free app on your camera on, right?
Yep, and it'll give a countdown to, a lot of times players are like, well, I don't have an additional coach. It's like, hit the timer, 15 seconds, run back over there, start feeding balls, get the footage you need, and then communicate with the student. Number 2. I think is a big one. A coach that
all of that was number 1.
I've listed 4 of them. This is number 2. So number 2 is a coach that diagnoses primary problems and isn't focused on symptoms. I think we see this a lot. I was guilty at it as a young coach. I'm like looking at a follow through and being like, get the follow through, all the things that you hear. But it's a symptom of something that's major. And it's like, oh, well, the contact is so jammed. How would the follow through ever get up here? It's like the contact point is breaking down because of poor footwork.
I actually read an article on how to find the right tennis coach that's right for you a really long time ago. And one of the things I talked about in that article is that very early on in my coaching career, all of my students were absolutely guinea pigs. Like, I had never solved a problem before. And I was just like, well, I have this certification. I know it's one of these 9 things. Let's guess and check. I mean, but for real, like if you're a 22-year-old tennis coach out there and you're second or first year, teaching, you haven't really seen and fixed a lot of problems yet. So that's where I think it's most prevalent. Where you see a newer coach, recently certified or not even, and they just don't have a lot of experience in fixing problems. They're going to treat symptoms. Yeah, it would be like. Yeah,
exactly. It's probably before your time. The old USPTA exam, you would watch a video and you'd have to pick the primary problem.
Yeah,
it was tough. It was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 1, kind of cliche, a coach that's a good listener, a good communicator, and is passionate about the sport, passionate about you getting better. But I think, we know that you need a good listener, but I worked with 6 of the most amazing pros at the club that we actually film at now. And what we realized is in our team meetings, a lot of times we were all working with a lot of the same people. We would talk about what we were having success with. And what we realized is that most of the time we were saying the same thing, but someone used some analogy or used some way of communicating it that it had a breakthrough. I was like, okay. So like communication, how you say things is really, really important.
Yep. Some people are visual learners, some auditory, some, everybody learns differently. So honestly, a lot of good coaches are saying the same stuff. They're just saying it in different words that resonate with different people.
If you have an accent, it helps.
Yeah. Makes you way more authoritative.
or a beard. The beard looks good.
Thanks, man.
It's talking to me.
It's hiding the ugly.
Okay, so we've kind of already talked about this, but I have a couple more thoughts, and you guys might want to piggyback on it. I've always noticed that his technique is priority, winning matches is secondary, and I say that I feel I'm one to be match tough to win matches. Technique alone doesn't win matches. Exactly. Thoughts. So here I just want to, in case you didn't hear this, Francisco, you have to practice in a closed to an open environment. All right, I want everybody pay attention to this. You practice from a closed to an open environment. Closed is shadow strokes. Like if you want to achieve perfection on your strokes, if that is so important, like I want to achieve great technique, you need to spend a lot of heavy lifting hours on shadow strokes and hand feeds. And then as you move more into an open environment, you have to be ready for a little bit more ugly play, especially when you get into match play. And you want to stop thinking so much about the new stuff you're trying to learn, because that's a big mistake. If you're like getting the shadow stroke down, and then you're like, okay, now when I play my match, I've got to do it right. It's not going to work. You want to basically, wherever you are in the learning progress, you go out and you play your match, just hit your shot where it is. And my final tip will be this, and you'll play a lot better. I want you to think about hit what you can hit and make what you can't hit. And too many recreational players, since they see the pros being able to run to so many balls and still hit it, their tolerance for being able to hit a ball on the run and things like that is a lot higher than you. So yes, you might be able to look like Djokovic. You might be getting in that kind of like picture where your stroke looks good, but you can't run the same amount of length to the ball and hit it like him. So you got to realize, okay, once I take this many steps, I'm just going to make the ball because I can't really hit it well. And then when you see one in your strike zone, you know you can hit that shot. The more you do that, you'll be able to play pretty and win matches.
Peter, we talk a ton about this. Like when we work with students in our live workshops, one of the biggest things, particularly in like a single strategy workshop, is understanding how to play offense when you're on offense and defense when you're on defense. And it's very much what you just said. It's when you're out of position, when you're on the run, now is not the time to try and get on Sports Center. It's a time to play high percentage defensive shots. When you can set your feet, when the ball's in the middle third of the court, when you're being pulled forward, that's when it's time to, take the risk and be more offensive. So that's a huge theme with our instruction. You even bring it a step further when you start to talk about shape versus drive and what's appropriate to impart on the ball based on where you are on the court. But that's spot on.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. And everybody make sure to go out to, I'll write in the chat. If you've never been to their website, go there. And if you need a coach, you can find one. How long does it take if somebody went online trying to look for a coach?
You could book a coach in less than a minute. Yeah, you just go in there, you enter in your zip code, you answer some questions about what you're trying to achieve in your sort of specific situation, and then we recommend the battle-tested coach for you. If you book right there on the platform, the coach will call you within 24 hours. If you need a little more hand-holding, which, a lot of times purchasing lessons, particularly for your kids, is a big deal, and you want to make sure you get it right. We do have tennis concierges, so if you don't book through the platform, right away, you'll actually get a reach out from one of our tennis account managers to kind of help you figure out exactly what you're looking for. So
awesome. So I put it right there in the chat, guys. Playyourcourt.com. It's pretty easy to remember. And you go there, sign up for a lesson, get yourself in a league, buy some rackets. I mean, you can do so many things. You can even get more online lessons from those two characters. It's awesome. How is there any leagues going on right now with the Play Your Court? Are you guys in between leagues?
Yeah, Bracket Challenge fall registration just opened up, so definitely check that out. I actually got the website up in the background just in case you ask me questions. So this is playyourcourt.com. If you just kind of go down here, you'll sort of learn about all the things we offer. And towards the bottom here, there's a specific section on the bracket challenge right here. And if you click get started, it'll give you all the information you need. So bunch of ways, bunch of things that we have to offer you. Gear. I mean, I'm not going to give you the pitch here. Check it out. Play Your Court. If you're interested in really anything tennis, we do that.
Anything tennis, they do that. Thank you guys. Also, if you have not got your free ticket yet to TennisCon 7, make sure you go to tenniscon7.com, sign up. These guys are going to be doing a lesson. They're doing one on the volley, right?
Forehand volley.
Bulletproof that forehand volley, baby.
I love that theme too, Peter. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Bulletproofing, different techniques.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's something, and we'll leave with this because we're talking about coaches, and that's what I love about this event is we have the dream team of coaches in all aspects of tennis.
And Nate's on there.
Yeah, and Nate's on there too. But and if you want to look at how important coaches and actually having a team can be, look at Novak Djokovic. Novak Djokovic, who we always now you don't remember the struggle when you see somebody being so successful, but in 2010, Federer had 16 Grand Slams, Nadal had 9, Djokovic had 1. And why is that? Because as great as he still had noticeable holes in his game. His serve technique was a little wonky, prone to double faults. His forehand could be broken down in cross-court rallies and pressure situations. And the craziest part was when he first joined the tour, his mental and physical frailty was questioned a lot. Federer, even after he defaulted to Andy Roddick, he had to quit against Andy Roddick in the Australian Open, kind of called him out and said, well, it's not like the first time he's ever done this. He's quit against me. The tour kind of like, he's got a rep of being like weak. And then after that, Djokovic went gluten-free because some doctor contacted him, and that kind of like opened up the floodgates when he started winning more and more. He got the best serve coaches in Todd Martin, Boris Becker, Goran Ivanisevic. He's worked with all kinds of mental gurus. His physical trainers travel everywhere with him. So we're giving that with TennisCon. We're giving you guys the dream team of coaches. Anything you need to work on, we got it. Plus, you got to play your court.
Love
You can
it.
have a coach show up at your driveway tomorrow, wake you up and say, let's get your booty to the court.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, DeVore. Limper,
All right,
appreciate
guys.
it. A
Yeah,
lot of
Peter,
nice
thanks
things
for
being
having
said.
us, man. Yeah, and honestly, guys, do check out TennisCon 7. Have we been a part of TennisCon since TennisCon 1?
Absolutely. You've been there the whole time.
Look at that. That's how you know.
We're
it's good.
OGs, Pete.
Come on, now.
OGs.
Yeah.
For real,
Yeah.
guys, check out TennisCon 7. It's going
It's
to be
going
a
to
great
be
event.
incredible.
We only play with things that are great, so it wouldn't be in TennisCon 7 or 6 or 5 or 4 or 3.
There you go. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, Peter.
See you guys.